Hello all, Elite DSP here, and today I'm bringing a beginner's guide for the Jade Harvester build. This is going to be a very basic guide meant for anybody who's recently started playing Witch Doctors, or maybe who wants to try Witch Doctor and just heard about Jade, wants to see what it's about. In this video I'll show you the spec, then I'll go through the very basics of gearing, and I'll end with a little more gameplay and a few tips for you guys. Now let's talk about the spec. You have 5 mandatory abilities, with 1 ability slot being optional between 2 defensive abilities. Your mandatory abilities are Haunt, Piranhas, Locust Swarm, Soul Harvest, and Jaunt. Your optional abilities are either Horrify, or you can use Zombie Dogs. Now your main damaging abilities are Haunt and Locust Swarm. Haunt, you want to run with Resentful Spirits. Whenever you cast it, it'll send out 2 spirits, doing damage over time to whatever enemies you target. Locust Swarm, you want to run Pestilence, and when you cast this is a melee range cast. When you cast it, it'll spread out to everything around it. So it'll get that damage over time to all the targets nearby. Next up is Soul Harvest. With Soul Harvest, you're going to want to run Siphon. Soul Harvest is a point-blank area of effect spell, and for every enemy hit by Soul Harvest, you gain a large chunk of your health back with Siphon. Harvest has an additional effect when used with the Jade Harvest set. When used on mobs that have your dots on them, like Haunt or Locust Swarm, it'll take 30 seconds of that dot and put the damage up right away. So with decent gear, you'll see Soul Harvest damage for anywhere from 500 million to 2 billion damage, depending on your gear. This is a large chunk of the damage of the Jade set. For your defensive abilities, Jade spec is quite squishy, so you need about 3 defensives in order to keep you alive. First and most important is Spirit Walk. Now, Spirit Walk, you're going to want to run Jaunt. It basically keeps you from taking damage for 3 seconds. Strong ability. Next, we have Piranhas. What Piranhas does is it'll throw down a pool of piranhas, basically. They'll come up and bite the enemies, and they'll throw enemies into each other. So this is used for both CC and for grouping enemies together so that you can hit more enemies with your Soul Harvest. Last, we have the real choice of the build. Now, you can either run Horrify with Frightening Aspect, which grants you additional armor, or with Stalker, which grants you additional movement speed whenever you use it. What Horrify does is it's a point-blank area of effect ability that will fear and immobilize the targets. So it's good for CC. Or you can choose to use Zombie Dogs. And usually people with Zombie Dogs will either use Lifelink, which makes the dogs take 10% of all damage done to you, or Leeching Beasts, which makes each dog give you 100% of your life on hit with every attack. Now, people use this in conjunction with a certain mojo, and which will send 30% of the damage done to you towards the dogs as well. But in higher grade rifts, dogs tend to die, and Horrify just becomes a better ability because it keeps you from taking damage because enemies are CC'd. So I would go Horrify, but dogs are also an option. Now we have the passives. There are 3 mandatory passives and 1 choice. Our mandatory passives are Creeping Death, Grave Injustice, and Spirit Vessel, and the choice is between Gruesome Feast or Pierce the Veil. First we have Creeping Death. What this does is it makes Haunt and Locust Swarm, instead of lasting 12 seconds and 8 seconds respectively, lasts nearly forever. Forever in Blizzard's terms is about 5 minutes. But what this does is it allows that Soul Harvest to take off the 30-second chunk, which couldn't be done since this only takes off, it only lasts 12 seconds, lasts 8 seconds. So it makes your Soul Harvests do a lot more damage. So completely necessary there. The next one is Grave Injustice, and what this does is every time something dies near you, it reduces all your cooldowns by 1 second. Most of your abilities are cooldown abilities. Spirit Walk, Soul Harvest, Horrify are all cooldowns, as well as Piranhas. Next we have Spirit Vessel, and there's 2 big parts to this. One, if you die within 90 seconds, it revives you and puts you in the Spirit Realm. Basically like Spirit Walk, it makes you invulnerable for 2 seconds, which is very nice. You tend to die a lot because Jade is quite squishy. The other part of it is it reduces the cooldown of Horrify, Spirit Walk, and Soul Harvest by 2 seconds, which is also great because CDR is a big deal on this build. Last, we have the choice between Gruesome Feast and Pierce the Veil. Now, what Gruesome Feast does is every time you pick up a health globe, it gives you 10% extra ints and 10% of your maximum mana back. But the 10% int is what you want to look at. It stacks up to 5 times, and 10% int is basically 10% damage. It also gives you a little bit extra toughness, which is great. But so if you can keep 2 of these up, that's 20% damage, as opposed to Pierce the Veil, which makes all of your spells do 20% more damage, but costs 30% more mana. So at 2 stacks, Gruesome Feast is better. And most of the time, I'll end up running Gruesome Feast. Pierce the Veil is also a choice, and if you have a Hellfire neck, you end up using both. Now onto the items. I'm only going to talk about the most important pieces of the Jade set, as I'll cover it in more depth in later videos. You need the gloves, the shoulders, chest, the legs, and the boots. This gives you 5 pieces of Jade. In order to get your 6th piece, you need the Ring of Royal Grandeur. This gives you that 6-piece set. 2-piece set gives you 500 int. 4-piece set gives you 20 mana regen per second. And then the 6-piece set is that bonus to Soul Harvest, where it consumes your damage over time effects on enemies. This consumes that 30 seconds that I was talking about earlier, and which makes you do that 500 million to 2 billion damage, depending on how you're geared. Now the last piece, 7th piece to the Jade set, that is absolutely crucial, is Quetzalcoatl Helm. Now what this does, as it says, is Locust Swarm and Haunt now deal their damage in half the normal duration. Now remember, Soul Harvest, when you take off Locust Swarm and Haunt, takes off 30 seconds of it. So by dealing their damage in half the duration, and by being modified by Creeping Death, setting that duration up to 5 minutes, it essentially doubles that damage. So instead of that 500 million to 2 billion damage, you're going to end up going to be doing 250 million to 1 billion damage without it, which is still good damage, but one item which doubles your damage, you might as well use it. I don't want to bore you guys too much with all proper gearing stuff, so we'll get into a little gameplay. Now what you're going to want to do is get your Haunt up on all the priority targets, anything with a high HP. This is elites, this is just big mobs in general. Haunt is about 80% of your damage, but you don't really need to get on everything, just because Locust Swarm will do a decent amount too. And then, once Haunt's on there, you run in, you Locust Swarm them. Locust Swarm will jump around to a bunch of mobs, Piranhas to pull everything together, and then Soul Harvest. You use Horrify and Spirit Walk defensively, and if anything doesn't die, you just drag them to the next pack, Soul Harvest them again. A lot of times Soul Harvest will come back off cooldown because of Grave Injustice. The playstyle is fast and fun. You need to manage 2 dots, Soul Harvest, and 3 defensives. And those are the basics. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope it gave you a little insight into the Jade Harvester build. I'm going to keep putting out some more guides, so if there's anything you guys want to see explained, let me know in the comments. And if you could, please rate the guide. It helps me know what's working, what you guys like to see, and what you guys don't want to see. If you like this and you want to see some more, comment whenever I put it out. Feel free to subscribe and you'll keep up to date with my channel. Thanks for watching.